You know, I can imagine that it's pretty tough for Christians out there on YouTube. I mean, every time you put up a video, you get X number of comments from atheists who are being critical of you, who are attacking your logic, who are going after you for your beliefs. And that would be a little scary, I admit that. But I think that the problem is, or the reason why you might fear that, is that you don't know who we atheists are. You might know a little bit about what we believe or how we think as a result of our criticisms, but I don't think that you know who these atheists are. Where did they come from? Why are they here? Why are they attacking your particular theology? And I think that that's a rather sad state of the world. So I'm setting out here to try and explain a little bit of it, so when you are pwned on YouTube, you'll understand it. So where do we start? Well, as Aristotle says, if you want to understand anything, you've got to look at its beginning and its development. So where did these atheists first begin from? Well, I suspect that since the first time that a man came out of the bush and said, "The Great Bear Spirit has told me to head north," there's been someone there who said, "Bullshit, I don't believe in your Great Bear Spirit and I don't think we should head north." With respect to Christianity, it's even in your own holy book. You can see the origins of atheists, or at least atheists who are responding to Christianity. And this is something that was influential upon St. Paul as he tried to evangelize the Western world. The Western world at the time had people like Aristotle, like Socrates. They'd had great thinkers, and they weren't dumb. And they called bullshit on Christianity because it had no philosophical backbone. Christianity still has no philosophical backbone, rather it has stolen it from Plato. Nonetheless, this influence on Paul's work led to some fairly predictable results. In response to these philosophers, these Western men, effectively calling bullshit on Paul whilst he had tried to preach, he started to preach a word of hatred against those philosophers. He started to preach that these men cannot be trusted, that they should not be listened to. He preached that they were unwise, and he preached that his God would destroy them. And this led to various practices, including book burning. The curious arts, which are referred to, as sometimes thought to be sorcery, but we know that libraries such as the library at Alexandria were destroyed. We know that various books by philosophers such as Aristotle's Categories were destroyed. The Categories by Aristotle was a work which said in order to say that something exists, you would have to answer certain categories of questions about them. And of course God could not be answered in any of those categories, and ergo the conclusion that God did not exist on the basis of this was heretical, so it was destroyed. It was burnt. Another work which the early Christians destroyed was Galen's Anatomica. This was the first book which described experimentation into dead bodies, to review the anatomy, the initial study of anatomy of human beings, the beginnings of medicine. And yet Christians, early Christians, thought that that was heretical to look into the dead body, something which we now rely on for medicine, and they burnt it as well. Numerous books, the early knowledge of Western civilization, destroyed because St. Paul did not like that the people who used those kind of books did not believe in his God. Now, for whatever reason, Christianity did eventually come to the fore in the Roman Empire, which at the time was the dominant force in the Western world. And over time they became more Christianized, and as such became far more aggressive. It became more difficult for people to call bullshit on what they said when everyone in power were Christian. And this led to the darkest hour for unbelievers, for non-believers. The darkest hour was when the Emperor Justinian made a law, the laws under the Justinian Code, which effectively said that if you did not believe in Christianity, then you were insane and a criminal. They closed down all of the schools of philosophy throughout the Roman Empire, and caused the burning of numerous books, which had already been largely destroyed. But they made books with knowledge in it illegal. And so for almost 1,000 years the Western world was quiet. It did not advance. The only advancements really were in battle, in the means of causing war. The Crusades were exemplified of the Christian knight with the heavy cavalry charge, and as a force to be reckoned with, but not a technologically savvy person, not someone who had much understanding about the world, just of their faith and just of blood. And that's how it stood for a long time. However, fortunately, others had kept the works of the ancient Western world. In the religion of Islam, there was no problem with keeping these books. There was no problem with seeking knowledge. And so they kept many of the old books which had been done by Aristotle, which had been authored by Socrates. And they kept them in places like Cordoba. Cordoba was in Spain and conquered by the Moors and had a great library. The Christians eventually conquered Cordoba, and with it found yet again these ancient books, these ancient works, which slowly spread through the rest of the empire. Even Christians from the time were influenced by these works. Thomas Aquinas was influenced by the works of Aristotle, and in objection to arguments that man can only know things through God, he found that no, man can know things through his own facilities, through his own knowledge. This spread throughout Europe and ended up in what we call the Renaissance. Every facet of intellectual activity was affected by this, whether it be art, literature, science, inventions. Everything was influenced by this new thinking, this new ability to actually explore the world, and to use man's knowledge rather than just repeating the dogma of the church. In doing so, it caused fundamental social change to a society which for almost 1,000 years had remained stagnant. But with change comes conflict, and these new thinking men found themselves running up against and in opposition to the authorities in the church and the authorities generally, for now applying their thinking. Nonetheless, authorities cannot ignore that the fruits of thought, the fruits of logic, the fruits of science that came from those early Greeks results in strength of a society, of a nation, both individually and for the nation as a whole. Every society which has been dominant on the global scene since the Renaissance has also been the dominant society in respect of thought, in respect of science. And in this way, science, modern thought, has become ingrained within modern society. It is no longer Paul's rationale which carries the world, no longer the rationale that you must ignore philosophers, but rather that you must take heed of them if you are to have any relevance in the modern world. And now we have the modern world, garnered by science. There are good living standards for all. There is a rule of law, freedom of speech, these things that we hold dear. And they are the result of that history of thought. But he who does not take note of history is in peril of having it repeat. So when we see Christians, creationists, etc., coming along and saying that they now want to get rid of evolution, get rid of some science, we fear that this will bring us back to a dark age. This is our conclusion. Why do YouTubers attack these Christians who come online? Because they are a fundamental threat to our modern society. So who are we atheists? We atheists are the inheritors, the true heirs of Western civilization, the once and future kings. And we shall not be stopped by some Christian creationist group who wishes to muddy the waters, to stop learning, to stop knowledge, and to stop the progress of science, of our understanding of our universe around us. It shall not be done, and that, my friends, my Christian friends who are out there, is the reason why we are so critical of you.
The Earth, our home. It's in the perfect spot for life, known as the Goldilocks zone. Too close to the sun and we cook. Too far from the sun and we freeze. The Earth had to have been placed in its precise orbit by an intelligent force in order to make our lives possible. Creationists have been saying that for years. As of February 2nd, 2011, they can never say that again. On March 6, 2009, scientists put the Kepler Space Telescope in orbit, and in just half its mission time, an infinitesimal glimpse into the sky, it found 1,235 planets, 54 of which are in the habitable zones of their stars. 5 of them are the same size as Earth. The Kepler telescope only surveys 1/400th of the sky, and it only examines a tiny fraction of the millions of stars in that section of sky. If it could see the whole sky, it would see over 400,000 planets. And that's just in our neighborhood of the galaxy. The Milky Way has 400 billion stars. The fastest vehicle ever built by human beings would take 4 billion years to cross it, 100,000 years at light speed. That amount of time encompasses all of human history. Just a small glimpse into a tiny fraction of our galaxy revealed over 1,000 worlds. With so many planets out there, it's not surprising that we'd find many of them in habitable areas. We've been trying to tell creationists that this is probably the case, but they just didn't listen. And now, thanks to Kepler, we've been vindicated. Yet this doesn't even scratch the surface. There are 100 billion galaxies in our universe, separated by vast oceans of space. What does that mean? It means that your mind cannot comprehend the sheer number of Earths that are out there. Still feel like it was all put here just for you? And now, in deep space, astronomers are finding immensely powerful gravitational forces that they theorize could be caused by other universes. Our universe could be just another speck in a galaxy of universes, and so on and so forth.
It's not unusual to be loved. It's not unusual to have fun with anyone. But when I see you hanging about with anyone, it's not unusual to see me cry.